welcome back to Season 2 of Pack the Rock podcast. I'm your host, Audrey Marr, joined by Carlo Barone and Kylee Corman, and a very special guest, Zion Brown with the IndyStar. Thank you for coming on, Zion.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited.
This is going to be a very fun episode. How's everyone doing?
Doing okay.
Doing a lot better now. I was sick on Sunday and Monday, but I'm feeling better now.
I thought you were going to say you just missed us so much, and you're doing better now that you're in our company.
That's an assumption.
Okay.
All right.
I saw you the last couple of days, too. It's been enough.
What was yesterday?
Monday.
I don't think I saw you.
All right, Audrey.
All right, well, let's get into it. Indiana and Rutgers last weekend. Indiana lost with a final of 31-17. A lot to talk about, but Zion, I'll start with you. What are your takeaways from the game?
I think my main takeaways were just about, honestly, the disparity between these two programs. I mean, when you look at, neither of these programs have any historical, really, anything to lie on historically, but when you look at where these two teams were 3 years ago, obviously Indiana was having a great season and Rutgers was just okay. These are two teams, two programs you feel like should be at the same level for the most part. And watching that game, specifically the second half on Saturday, it felt like Rutgers has basically lapped Indiana in football, which is not something that should happen whatsoever. But it's the point that where they're at now. Greg Schiano has done a great job with that Scarlet Knights team, and they're bowl eligible this year after beating Indiana, and it just feels like they're on a whole nother level than IU is, and they shouldn't be.
I feel like Rutgers didn't really do anything special. Mm-hmm. You have to give credit where credit's due, obviously, but that just felt like Indiana beating themselves. Way too many mistakes, and this is a common theme. This is not something new, exclusive to just this game. But I think Indiana, there is nothing that Rutgers did that makes Indiana look like they should not have won that game.
Also, not to mention that Rutgers and Indiana recruiting is not a whole lot different. It's not like they're getting exponentially better players than Indiana is. It's purely down to the development of the players from the coaches, which, I mean, you see Indiana and you see a 6-2 Rutgers team with a quarterback that's not, I mean, he threw 12 passes in the game against IU, completed 5 of them. It's not like he's in the Heisman contention or even anywhere close to that. But they're 6-2 and they're bowl eligible with nearly, I mean, same kind of talent pool as Indiana, and IU's, what are they, 2-5 now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And along those lines, Carlo, it's not only the fact that Rutgers won that game or that they are 6-2 this year. You can tell they have an identity. Gavin Wimsatt is not a great quarterback, as you mentioned, but they know that they want to give the ball a bunch to Common guy and lean on their run game. And Indiana doesn't have that identity that Rutgers has, and that's why this team is 6-2. They could very well lose the rest of their schedule. They have 4 tough games. They could finish at 6-6, but still to even get to those 6 wins, they beat every team they are supposed to beat to this point in the season, and that's the difference.
Yeah, and I mean, a massive key to this game was how many injuries Indiana had. I mean, they were faced with Noah Pierre getting carted off in the game, Philip Dunham going down. There's also the targeting call on Lou Moore, which led to the ejection. How much of an impact did these absences have on the game?
I think they had a big impact. You can't say they didn't have an impact, but at the same time, I don't know that it really would have changed too much if they had stayed in the game. I think Indiana had already been down on themselves up to that point. But Pierre, Alan said yesterday, he's out for, quote-unquote, an extended period of time. No one knows how long that is. There's only, 5 weeks left in the season? Yeah. So, I don't know. That's just speculation. We'll see if he comes back. Dunham, he said, should be back before Pierre, which, again, we don't really know what that means, but should be a good sign. But this is a secondary that's already been struggling. So, yes, it definitely hurt Indiana, but it might hurt them more in the future.
And if you saw on Noah Pierre's IG story, he said the comeback's going to be greater than the fallout or something. I don't know, something. But I mean, without him and Dunham and Moore, I mean, that's 3 starters right there in your back line. I don't care what team you are in college football. If you're missing 3 of the guys in your secondary, that's a whole game changer. And that, I mean, that's going to change the way that teams attack this Indiana defense because they don't have 3 of their starters. I mean, anyone you'd want to jump on and attack them. But I think that Lou Moore ejection in the second quarter, I mean, that extended a drive that they originally, I believe, stopped on 3rd down. So it didn't end up end up mattering in the grand scheme of things because they eventually punted it, but that punt was the Jalen Lucas fumble. So maybe, I mean, it's a couple plays before. Maybe it changes the Jalen Lucas fumble to never happening. But that's, I mean, I'm just speculating at this point. But, I mean, those were big losses. And like Kylee mentioned, they're going to hurt more down the line, especially if these three can't go against Penn State this weekend.
Well, Moore will be back. But I think that call was tough. And Alan was talking about at the press conference yesterday about how just targeting calls are just most of the time unfortunate. There's the obvious intentional ones, but when you're just trying to make a tackle and helmets happen to collide and they call that really sucks for the team.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many head coaches in college football you could find that agree with that rule, or more specifically, the punishment of that rule, like of an ejection.
There should be levels to it.
There should absolutely be levels. It's just a big overreaction. I'm surprised it's lasted this long as far as the ejection being the rule on that. And it's unfortunate, and it happens, though. Rutgers had Tyree Powell, their linebacker, just the week before in the game against Michigan State, get ejected for an even worse call, in my opinion. So those things happen, but I don't think these 3 injuries or 2 injuries and ejection impacted IU that much on Saturday because we mentioned Rutgers doesn't throw the ball that much anyway. They only threw 3 passes in the second half, so I don't really think that affected things much. But definitely going forward, I think the loss of Pierre and Dunham is going to be huge. Pierre, I would expect to at least try his hardest to come back, given that he's out of eligibility after this year. So I don't think he wants to just sit it out, even if the team is bad. I don't think he wants to end his college football career just getting carted off the field. But it is unfortunate that he'll have to miss, like Alan said, at least a few weeks now.
Mm-hmm. And we saw a lot of mistakes that had a massive impact on the game, the muff punt for one. But looking from the outside in, what do you guys think went wrong for Indiana as a whole in the game?
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. They just beat themselves. Indiana has been cursed with penalties ever since that Micah McFadden targeting call 3 years ago now. Ever since then, they've been completely plagued with that issue. That's something that's been going on all season. They cannot get a handle on it. I can't imagine them getting a handle on it in the next 5 weeks. You've already had 8-9 weeks to figure it out, and you're still not there. But the special teams, it was just rough. That's 10 points they gave up. You can't do that, especially when it's Rutgers, a team that you have a shot against. Believe it or not, this is still an Indiana team in bowl contention.
It's their goal.
Right, it's their goal. Are they going to make it? I don't know. Can't speak to that. But that's one of the games that you have to win if you want to reach that goal. And your special teams giving up 10 points? That's ridiculous.
I mean, the final score, they lost by 17. Take away the 10 points that they did to themselves, and it's one score game.
Yep.
It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, it was a bad, poorly coached special teams game, too, in my opinion. Obviously, Jalen Lucas, you have to catch the ball. He's had issues with that. I doubt he'll return punts at all again this year. I think they'll keep him on kickoff for the rest of the season only. But even in that situation, there's no reason for him to even catch that ball. You're going to take a knee anyway. Just how about you just tell everybody to get away from the ball and let it bounce, and you just take a knee going to halftime. And then, of course, the blocked punt was just a situation where they could not get lined up right. I know Tom Allen said after the game they were going through their checks, and what he said made sense. But at the end of the day, you weren't lined up right because there was a free man coming off the edge who blocked that punt with ease. That means you weren't lined up right. So those are coaching issues, and I point to Casey Teagarden, the special teams coach, and say he wasn't necessarily ready for what Rutgers was going to do. I think the three of us talked before the game and talked about how Michigan State basically lost to Rutgers the week before in special teams, and the same thing happened to Indiana too.
Mm-hmm. And so a big topic of conversation, which I think we've honestly talked about every episode now, is the quarterbacks. And we saw that Sorsby got the starting job this week. First off, we'll talk about quarterbacks, but it seems that there is a mutual comfortability between Rod Carey and Sorsby. But how did you feel about Sorsby's performance from what you saw on Saturday?
It was all right. It's what you'd expect from an Indiana quarterback. Looking at his stats now, completing just under half his passes, 120 yards, a touchdown. I mean, the dude doesn't throw that many. I don't know how many interceptions he has on the year, but it's not that many. So, I mean, at least he's not throwing a ton of interceptions like Taven had when he'd get a little frustrated. I feel like he'd try to force some, but I mean, it's not. He definitely didn't play it well enough for them to win. But at the same time, this team is a lot of factors. I just think their offense is not, like Zion mentioned, they don't really have an identity. Rutgers has an identity. They're going to run it down your teeth until you can't take it anymore. Indiana, 1 week is Taven throwing the ball a ton of times. The next week, they're trying to get Jalen Lucas and, that running back trio involved. They're just trying different stuff, and none of it's hidden. It's what you'd expect from Brendan Sorsby. I think he is a better passer than Taven, but you're not really picking between two, as Walt Bell used to say, future NFL quarterbacks. I think he's wrong in that, but I think Sorsby can only get better, but I feel like he's also going to have to be a little bit more aggressive because a lot of them are pretty short throws. And the long balls, he's not even hitting those either. He's throwing them short anyway, so a lot of improvement, but I think he'll get better with time. Do I think he's a starter next year? I have no idea.
That's way too soon to even begin to speculate. I agree. He didn't really do anything great. He didn't really do anything terrible. And honestly, I don't expect anything out of these quarterbacks at this point in the season. They have been thrown through the ringer. Honestly, I give him credit, because if me and my best friend are in a quarterback battle, there's got to be some tension there. They say they're cool. They've been supportive of each other, which shout out to them for doing that. But just mentally, even if you are getting along, that does something to you. And just the confusion. How can either of them be confident on the field when they know that their job is constantly in jeopardy? So
that's a good point.
I don't expect anything out of them. I think they both have potential. Maybe not NFL potential. I think they have potential. But I just don't think either of them are getting the time and opportunity to learn and develop and let that potential grow.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The part about just not getting the time to grow, it's still sort of a mystery, and I guess it would have made it more confusing, but it is a bit of a mystery still why there's no true veteran that's healthy, at least, on this roster at the quarterback spot. I think both these guys are just unpolished, and I don't think the fact that they were going back and forth in camp, going back and forth in 2 weeks, and then going back and forth again in that Michigan game, that doesn't help anybody, I don't think, and I think you can see it. Even if Sorsby's the guy for the rest of this year, I'm just not sure if he'll be able to catch a rhythm. It may be into mid-November until we actually see him, catch a nice rhythm with the rest of the offense. And I didn't think he played terribly. The throw in the first drive, the touchdown to Omar Cooper, was a really nice throw.
That was a good
rolling to his left, but outside of that, nothing really stood out about what he did in that game.
Now, you get a 4-star prospect and a Tennessee transfer in Taven Jackson, and him being recruited seemed to be one of the most exciting things Indiana football has seen in a pretty long time. But if Indiana decides to stick with Sorsby and Taven doesn't start for the rest of the season, do you guys think that he enters the transfer portal?
I don't know. I think that is... Do they pick someone that they're sticking with after all these years? Or after this season? I don't know. I kind of feel like no. I think there's a lot of factors that goes into that. Who's still around? Who's coaching? All those questions. But I don't know. If they're both in the same grade, they're both at the same level. At this point, they're going to be right on schedule throughout the next 3-4 years, whatever they have left in eligibility. So I don't know. I would expect one of them to transfer for sure.
I think, does he enter the transfer portal? Yes. I think he definitely looks around to see what he's going to get offered. But if I had my gut feeling right now, he'd probably stay. And I don't think either of them want to do it again, but they might have to if neither one of them budge. It's hard to say because I definitely think he's going to look around, but I think he'll eventually just want to return. You got to think how much, his brother went here. It was a big deal. To leave after 1 year for all that, I don't think so. I think he's definitely going to look on his options, but I don't think he'll leave. I don't think so. It's hard to say, though. Honestly, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people transferring out of this team.
Really?
Yes. Are you kidding me?
What? They don't all want to stay here?
Yeah, exactly. But I think eventually he'll stay. The last 4 weeks or 5 weeks are going to be crucial though, because let me ask you guys this: do you guys think he sees the field again?
Probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't see why you wouldn't.
I think another thing you have to think about with him is NIL. Because I'm willing to bet that Jackson name is giving him some
100%.
pretty nice NIL.
Yeah.
Which name might not mean something if he goes somewhere else. I mean, it won't mean anything if he goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially with the legacy that Trace Jackson Davis left, whenever people talk about Indiana football this year, they talk about Taven Jackson, and that Taven Jackson is their guy as fans. I don't think I agree with Carlos' point. I think he will enter, but I don't think he will leave. I think he's too loved here. His family is way too loved that I don't think his family would. I can't speak for that, but I don't know. It seems like the state of Indiana is led by the Jackson brothers.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad I went last year. I don't think he'll leave now because now that I've sifted through my thoughts here. He's already transferred once. He was at Tennessee, great program right now, ranked program. Went down. It is what it is. Went down to Indiana.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's not.
So
it is what
you're
it
at
is.
Indiana. You're not having a great season. That means you would likely be going down from Indiana in the transfer portal. I think he would have a better shot of coming back next year, probably being in another quarterback competition with Sorsby, or just being the guy. Maybe Sorsby is the one that leaves, and then that's much better. And then the NIL point was excellent. I didn't even think about that part of it. He'll keep his money. So I think it just wouldn't make a lot of sense for him to transfer away from Indiana and end up at a somehow even worse Power 5 school or a group of 5 schools. So I just think he'll stay here.
Another aspect of this that we probably didn't mention is he's a college student, and if he transfers, like he's similar in age to us. If he transfers, that'll be his third school in 3 years.
Yeah.
At some point, you're a human and you want to have a fun time. And if you're moving 3-4 times, what friends really can you establish? Like, yeah, I guess you'll have your teammates on each team, but like, that's not a true college experience. And I feel like as little of a point this is, at the end of the day, athletes are humans too, and they definitely value having a good time, especially when you're a team like Indiana where you're not really having a good time on Saturdays anyway. So I think he stays.
Well, after the game, Sorsby mentioned that Carey was his scouting coach last year. So again, they seem to have they seem to be very comfortable with each other. So now that Carey's in that OC role, from what everyone has seen of him, it seems that Sorsby will be the guy moving forward for the rest of the season. From what we've seen, again, there's no way until.
Well, Alan said yesterday. He said he feels comfortable moving forward with him.
Yeah,
Whatever that means.
Yeah. So, well, how would you guys feel if Sorsby was the starter for the rest of the season? That's where I was going with that.
If he truly was, I would feel good about that. Like, okay, Indiana finally has their guy. They're sticking with him. He's going to grow and learn throughout these 5 weeks. But let's be really, really for real right now. He will now be the only person to play at the quarterback position in the next 5 weeks, especially with the possibility of Dexter Williams coming back.
Oh, you said it. Oh, you said it.
I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but
Jump it.
I don't think that they can keep anyone anywhere permanently. They get too impatient. They don't let things pan out. And again, with Dexter, they said last week Dexter's going to be coming back in a week or 2. He didn't come back at Rutgers.
Or 2 means
Penn
now.
State.
You can't throw him out against Penn State.
That's what I've been saying. You shouldn't. You can't.
No,
It's
Kylie.
Indiana
They can't.
football.
They
It's
can't do
Indiana
that.
football.
They can't do that.
They're going to.
They will not do that. I promise you, they will not do that.
Anything that you think they will do or think they shouldn't do, they'll do it.
Zion.
It's Indiana football.
I don't think they're going to either, but let's just say they're down 40-3 in the fourth quarter.
I think
Then you
that's
definitely
the
shouldn't.
only possibility that they could throw him in.
You definitely shouldn't.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I think if I was the coach, I would leave Sorsby in no matter what the whole score. You just need a full game from someone to another one to get him going, but we've been watching this team a couple years now, man. They are unpredictable as heck, and I don't get why the program is so so impatient for what, though? It's not like this team is like everyone's expecting them to get 8 or 9 wins a year. Like, what fan base are you trying to hold up the standard to by being impatient? Oh, we got to throw this guy in so we can win these games. It's like, obviously, this is a developing program. Why not develop your young guy with the rest of the team? I don't think they're going to throw him out there, but it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't be surprised either based on what we've seen from the program this season. But moving on to Dexter, let's go into a little bit more of Dexter talk. But I think that if he does come into the game, I think they'll see something from him. And I don't know, I think that, I don't want to say that he'll start, but I think that he will bring some sort of spark, as they love to kind of bring out. But
Imagine being Kylee and thinking there's going to be a spark. I got quote tweeted the other day.
What happened?
In my Twitter thread, I said a stat, whatever, and then I said, wouldn't be surprised if we started to see some new faces at quarterback to look for a spark, in quotes, spark, because that's what Alan always says. Mm-hmm. And someone quote tweeted me and said, like, imagine being Kylee thinking that there's going to be a spark in Indiana football. And I'm like, it's a quote, man. Like,
let me live.
But okay. Like,
it's okay. People are just mad.
Oh, I don't really care, but clearly he doesn't know anything. Sorry if you're a listener.
Oh, I hope this guy. I'm gonna look him up on Twitter.
We just lost a loyal fan. I'm devastated.
Oh, they always are.
But like, there's no reason to come at me. No reason. It's not me. I'm not out there.
Get owned.
What are we talking about?
Well, any closing thoughts on Dexter?
Oh, Dexter. Oh, I would. There's no way I'd bring him back against Penn State, but they might. But I don't think they will.
Yeah.
I feel like we'll probably see him maybe in that Wisconsin game the week after.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments in the Rutgers game where I felt like he might have actually been the backup and Taven was the third string. This is based off of nothing. This is based off sideline watching, which does no good sometimes. But just the way, like, during timeouts, he'd be throwing the ball back and forth with Sorsby or a receiver and stuff like that. So who knows what the pecking order is right now, but I think we see Sorsby all the way or close to near the end. And then even if it's not him, I think they put Taven in before they put Dexter in against Penn State.
I think something we should also think about is how good is Dexter? We really have not seen much of him. And he had a terrible, terrible injury, which can be very hard physically and let alone mentally to come back from. So okay, fine, Dexter's full go. Is he really that much better than Taven or Sorsby?
Let's not forget the game he won. He completed 2 passes.
I was just about to say, this is a guy whose passing numbers are pretty bad, but he is by far the best runner of these 3. However, he has now torn his ACL in one of his knees.
To be real.
He's now torn his ACL in one of his knees and dislocated the other.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I hope he's...
I think it's just the fact that obviously Indiana was at a very, very low point last season, and he brought that spark with Indiana, giving them their last win of the season at Michigan State, right?
Yeah. The last Big Ten win they've had.
I think that Dexter represents hope and a future for Indiana, because when he won that Michigan State game, everyone was like, this is our guy. Indiana football's back. So I think in this delusional fan base that is just so desperate for anything good, they're rooting for him because they are clinging on to that hope that maybe Indiana football can be back one day.
Okay, this wasn't in the plan and I just thought of this. But if there was any chance that Dexter Williams doesn't see action on the field or didn't start, can he enter the portal, or would he enter the portal?
I don't know his eligibility. I think he's got a minute, though, right?
Yeah, he has at least
redshirt
a year
junior
after this.
He's a redshirt junior right now.
So he's got one more after this?
Yeah.
Oh, he's out of here. 100%.
You think?
Oh, 100%, yeah. He's just going to be here on the bench the whole... I mean, if he's healthy and they don't throw him in at all, why would you stay?
I mean, I've been watching on the sidelines just like you, Zion, and from what I saw, he's been really helping in the play calling and working with everybody. And when I have been watching, he always has the headset on. I think Taven is definitely the backup, and he's there behind that. But he will obviously be there for like all of this evaluation that Indiana needs when they're on the field. But if they I don't know what their plan is from now going forward. If that's what he's being used for, to help being there for everybody on the field and what he sees on the field. But I don't know if that's just where they stick with him, right?
I don't know. He's so hard to say because he won that game, but we just talked about it. It's not like he played and had 300 yards. I mean, he had the 2-point conversion, and then he had one long throw to I think AJ Barner, maybe, and that was it. But he's a great runner, but I don't think he's. I get the hype, not really, to be honest. But now he's a knee surgery and a lot of rehab later. I mean, he hasn't played at all this year. It's not like he's gonna come out and be Michael Jordan, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think I think that Taven Jackson, obviously, Indiana didn't see any really offensive sparks last season. It was Connor Bazelak and Jack Tuttle, Donovan McCulley at some points, and Dexter Williams. So with all of that switching around, they got a better 4-star recruit in Jackson, and Sorsby grew during the offseason. So I think that obviously people are going based off of what he did last year, and I think that they already have quarterbacks in that same talent pool in Sorsby and Jackson. But okay, that was a lot of quarterback talk. But now, as Indiana's 2-5 heading into Penn State, do we think that it's time to circle back to the discussion of Tom Allen and his future?
I mean, I feel like this is an every week debate. I'm going to stand what I've been saying. I think he's gone after next year, but I don't think they have enough cash to kick him out now, to be honest.
I think the money is obviously the biggest factor here, clearly, but people are pissed. I think, what did I say earlier at the beginning of the year? He could not win a single game and still be fine because the buyout. Mm-hmm. I don't know. People are pretty freaking mad.
Oh, yeah, people are mad.
And you can tell Allen is also exhausted, and he doesn't really know what else to say anymore. After the game, someone asked, do you feel this season slipping away? And he's like, it has. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I truly can't imagine being in the position that he is in. It's tough, but there's just so many things. He always wants his players to buy into LEO, buy into the program. But he needs to buy into a quarterback. He needs to buy into people in these positions. There's just... there's so much. I think they might be doing some begging for some money, and I would be a little surprised if they got that much money for Indiana football, because then you still have to go find another coach, pay another coach. But people are pissed, and Indiana athletics was the highest profiting athletic department last year, so I mean, all that's clearly basketball. But
you want to know what's going to blow your mind? Indiana football makes more than Indiana basketball.
Really?
Yep. It blew
not
my
every,
mind
but
too.
almost everyone in Power 5, I believe, at least does make more in football.
Yeah.
It's
crazy. It is actually when I heard that.
I mean, that's the reason we're having this conference realignment sport. It's not about basketball. It's not about any other sport. It is about football and the money football generates, whether or not the programs are good or not, or whether or not the fans can travel to close games or not. That's what it's about. But on the Allen subject, I'm with you, Kylie. I just think it's going to be too hard to pay him to go away and pay enough for actual quality new coaching staff.
Who are you going to get? I think the best option Indiana has is go to Deion Sanders and say, I bet you can't turn this team around.
Why would he leave there?
Because he needs a new challenge.
Colorado, not a great historical program, but they have won a national championship. They had success in the 90s, and so did IU, I guess, in the 90s, but they had more success in IU then, so, at least you can point to that.
But if you tell Deion, hey, you can't do this, he's going to be like, you Bet I can.
And then he's going to be like, pay me $10 million to do it. And they're going to be like, we don't have that.
Yeah, we just spent 20 on Allen's goodbye. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go into some Penn State predictions really quick. There will be another episode coming out later this week going into the deeper dive of the game. But starting off, I don't know. I didn't check the rankings, but Penn State was number 7, but they lost to Ohio State. I don't know where they at now.
I think they're 10 now, right?
Still, top 10 team.
Something like that.
Top 10
Yes,
team.
10.
How can Indiana possibly stay in the game in State College?
I think a win for Indiana would just be keeping your guys healthy.
That's bleak.
That's tough. But
Do you disagree?
no, not at all. Especially with how banged up this team got on Saturday. How do they stay in the game? I don't really think they have much of a chance. I saw something on Twitter today that Indiana has only beaten Penn State 2 times in series history, and both times have been in Bloomington. Obviously, the Mike Penix game, which is 3 years ago today, probably the greatest moment in this team's history. To be honest, maybe one of them. It's
At least
just
in
really
the last 50 years it is.
which is really
Because
sad.
the Rose Bowl was in the 60s, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Mike Penix in Washington, but I don't think they have a chance really to stay in the game. But it's I don't know. They have historically they've literally never won there. So they're going to try to do something that this program has never done, and I don't think this is the team that will do it. We'll talk about score predictions in a sec, but the only way they stay in the game is if their defense plays like pretty well, or if they get a turnover or 2. They haven't gotten a lot of turnovers at all, but if they put their offense in short fields, I mean, that's a good recipe to win any game, no matter what team you are. But it's going to be really hard for them to stay in the game. Or if they play like that first quarter against Michigan. You know, they pressured J.J. McCarthy. They sacked them a bunch. If they can get some pressure and get some 3 and outs and put their offense in good positions, maybe. But do I think that's going to happen? Absolutely not.
Yeah, on the turnover front, this team hasn't forced a turnover since the Akron game. So that has become an issue because they were doing a pretty good job at it at the beginning of the year, and then it just stopped. But they definitely are going to need a couple of those to have a somewhat successful day at Penn State. Obviously, I don't think any of us are going to pick them to win. Sorry, spoiler alert. But so yeah, that would be one thing. And then I just looking to see, can this team score 2 touchdowns or maybe 10 points? Can they go into Penn State and do that? It's not a lot. It's not something you're gonna celebrate in the locker room, but to do that would show that at least the fact that you're. Oh my God!
No, we're all for you.
Are you proud of yourself?
Wow.
That was harsh.
I don't even know what I was about to say. No, but it would at least show that choosing Sorsby and the new hiring of Rod Carey has given yourself some stability on offense, which has just been an issue. So going out and scoring, 10 to 17 points should maybe be a goal of IU going into this game.
All right. Let's go into some final score predictions. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I'm going to say, all right, let's see that. Pretty much the entire secondary's out. So I'm going to go 56-3.
Oh, jeez, that's worse.
I don't think they're even going to get. They might get 10 points. If they get 10 points, it'll be an early field goal and a garbage time touchdown. I just don't have any expectations for this team going into this game. I think if you can keep the team morale up, however they're doing that now, keep morale up, keep everyone healthy. That's a win. That's a win in my book.
For reference here, I'm looking at Penn State's schedule. They beat Delaware, an FCS school, 63-7, and they beat Massachusetts, who's like pretty much the worst school year in and year out in FBS, 63-0. So you're saying you think Indiana's on the line with those things, basically?
Do you not?
I'm going to give them a touch more grace.
Where's that ranking thing? Have you seen that spreadsheet?
Bottom 25.
Oh yeah, those are funny.
That.
I'm going to say 41-6 as my final score. I don't think Penn State, because I don't think they're as good as Michigan, basically. And I know Michigan has everything going on right now, a bunch of stuff in the news, but I don't think they're as good as Michigan, and that was a team that put up 52. So I'll give them a little less, 41 points. I'll give IU 6, so score 2 field goals.
You want to go first? Or
Yeah, I can do it. In my mind, I had 56-3, but after what you mentioned with the two teams like that, I think I'm going to go 49-7. No, not 7. 49-6. I don't think they get in the end zone.
I don't know what it is about us literally picking the same scores. I was literally thinking 49.
49-6.
I was thinking 49, but
Can I interrupt for a second while you
ahead.
think of a score?
I'm going to keep 49, but go ahead.
Do you guys think that part of the reason that Michigan had that little rough of a first quarter because they didn't send scouts to scout out Indiana?
Jeez.
Because 11 out of 14 of the Big Ten schools, they allegedly bought tickets to scout. And who do you think? Well, they're one of the teams, so there's 2 teams that they are not scouting.
No way.
Who do you think that is? Who do you think that is?
No. Here's why I don't think Indiana was. Here's why I think Indiana was one of those 11 schools, I should say. It's because they're on the schedule. I think the 2 schools are probably 2 teams in the Big Ten West that they just know they're not ever going to play. Which I don't know. I don't know Michigan's schedule by heart, but
I don't know.
what sense would it make to go send once again, I don't even know their schedule, but if they didn't play Northwestern this year, why would you send a scout to Northwestern?
And it's not like they're going to be in the Big Ten Championship either. That's a good point.
Why would you send a scout to Indiana?
Because you play Indiana.
Look, Kylie, I know exactly what you're saying. There's literally no reason for them to. But like Zion mentioned, on the schedule, I mean, they're trying to go undefeated
yeah.
with
I was
Natty
saying
this
it as
year.
more of like a joke. We didn't need to get all like serious about it.
It was funny, though.
It was a great talking point.
Maybe it's plausible. I don't know.
Do you think that's why Indiana started that game off well? Because they didn't know? Because they just...
It was Rod Carey. They could have come up... Well, no, that actually wasn't the playbook. Never mind. I'm lying. But...
I don't know.
Imagine being us. We don't know what we're talking about.
Speak for
Oh,
yourself.
jeez.
Yeah, me. Just me. Just me.
All right, well... My score prediction, I'm going to go 49-10. That might be given a little bit of grace based on your guys' scores. But I think this is a game that Penn State takes out their starters halfway through the third quarter. And I think that Indiana will probably... I don't know if they throw Dexter in, so I think it's going to be between Sorsby and Jackson. So either way, one of them does have the ability to get down the field if it is... in their if it is Penn State's backups on the field. So I think the only time that they will score a touchdown will be late in the game. So I'm going to go 49-10. Anyone else have anything to say before? Any more talking points?
Happy Halloween.
It's next week. But I guess when this come out? Wednesday?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, happy Halloween. I don't know. Thanks for having me, guys.
Everyone be
Yeah, of
safe
course,
this
Zion.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Agreed.
true, Kylie.
Thanks for coming on, Zion.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
I was gonna
it.
say, thanks, Zion.
You guys are my favorite non-IndyStar beat, so I really appreciate you
go.
Take that,
you asking
rivals.
me to come on.
Oh, jeez.
All right, we're going to have beef. Well, thank you all for tuning into episode 14 of Pack Throd Podcast. I was going to say thank you for coming on again, but I've been Audrey Marr, joined alongside Carlo Barone and Kylee Corman. Make sure to keep up with the Hoosier Network on Instagram, YouTube. Do we just start calling it X now? I guess we're going to go with X and TikTok for all of your IU football updates. And we will see you next week.